In a troubling incident on the Tehran Metro, 16-year-old Armita Geravand suffered a mysterious injury after boarding a train without a headscarf. The event, coming just after the one-year anniversary of Mahsa Amini's death, has reignited anger in Iran, where mandatory hijab laws remain a point of contention. The exact details of what happened in the moments after Geravand stepped into the train remain unclear, but within seconds, she is seen being carried off, unconscious. The footage, notably soundless, is obscured by a bystander, leaving critical details unseen. Shortly after, her limp body is rushed away. Geravand's parents appeared on state media, suggesting her injuries might have resulted from a fall or a sudden drop in blood pressure. However, activists allege she may have been attacked for not wearing the hijab, a violation of Iran's strict dress codes. They call for an independent investigation by the United Nations, citing concerns over coerced confessions and the regime's history of pressuring families. This incident coincides with the return of Iran's morality police to the streets, a move that has intensified tensions over the enforcement of hijab laws. Critics argue these measures perpetuate violence against women, with families often forced to shield the government's actions. Mahsa Amini, from the Center for Human Rights in Iran, criticized the environment of fear, stating girls are subjected to violence on the streets, and then their families are compelled to protect the government responsible for that violence. The hijab, viewed by many as a religious and cultural symbol, became mandatory in Iran following the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Its enforcement has sparked numerous protests over the years, the most significant being after Mahsa Amini's death in 2022. Detained by the morality police for allegedly wearing her hijab improperly, Amini's death led to widespread demonstrations, marking one of the most significant challenges to Iran's theocratic regime in decades. Now, a year later, Geravand's case has brought the issue back into the spotlight. On the morning of her injury, Geravand, described as a calm and healthy teen, entered the Meydan-e-Shohada station. By the time she exited the train, she was unconscious, her injury shrouded in mystery. At the Meydan-e-Shohada station, Armita Geravand appeared composed as she moved through the metro system. Surveillance footage aired by Iranian state television shows her entering the station at 6:52 a.m., descending an escalator, and calmly purchasing a snack before heading to the platform. However, a notable gap of about a minute and a half exists in the footage before she scans her metro card at the turnstile gate. At 7:08 a.m., Geravand boards the last car of the train, reportedly a women-only compartment. As she steps inside, a train conductor walks past, momentarily blocking the camera's view of the door. Within 4 seconds, chaos unfolds. A woman abruptly steps back out of the train, and the edge of Geravand's head is briefly visible as she lies motionless on the floor. Bystanders quickly pull her limp body from the car and rush to get help, but the train departs, leaving crucial questions unanswered. State television's report omitted footage from inside the train, raising suspicions among activists and human rights groups. The Tehran Metro typically has CCTV cameras in its cars, accessible to security personnel, yet no explanation was offered for why this footage remains unreleased. The Oslo-based group Iran Human Rights stated, refusing to publish the footage only increases doubts about the official narrative. Geravand was transported to Fajr Hospital, a facility on an Iranian Air Force base near the station. Reports of her condition quickly spread, including a photo published by the Hingo Organization for Human Rights showing Geravand in a coma with her head wrapped in bandages. Hingo alleged that she was physically attacked by authorities for not wearing a hijab. Iranian officials have denied these claims, and state media later showed her parents attributing the injury to a possible fall or blood pressure issue. Activists, however, believe such statements may have been coerced. Adding to the growing tension, Hingo reported the arrest of Geravand's mother, Shihin Ahmadi, though Iranian authorities have neither confirmed nor denied the claim. Semi-official news outlets have dismissed the allegations, while international calls for transparency grow louder. This incident comes amidst increased enforcement of hijab laws in Iran. Women in Tehran continue to defy the mandatory hijab rule despite a heightened crackdown, including the deployment of hijab guards to monitor compliance and detain violators. As the controversy surrounding Armita Geravand's injury deepens, international attention has turned toward Iran's handling of the situation. Activists have called for an independent investigation, particularly after Geravand's injury coincided with the renewed presence of morality police on Iranian streets. The morality police, whose role in Mahsa Amini's detention and subsequent death sparked unprecedented protests in 2022, remain a focal point of public resentment. Hingo Organization for Human Rights alleges that Geravand was assaulted for not complying with the country's compulsory hijab laws. The group's claims have fueled speculation about the incident, which many believe mirrors the violent enforcement tactics that led to Amini's death. Iranian state television's release of selected surveillance footage, conspicuously missing moments inside the train car, has done little to quell these suspicions. Critics argue the omissions and inconsistencies only strengthen doubts about the official narrative. Iranian authorities have maintained their position, downplaying allegations of foul play. However, their response to growing public and international scrutiny appears to mirror past tactics, arresting journalists, restricting access to critical information, and pressuring families of victims. The Committee to Protect Journalists reported that a journalist from the reformist Shar newspaper was arrested after attempting to visit the hospital where Geravand was being treated. Shar had played a significant role in exposing the circumstances surrounding Mahsa Amini's death, making it a target for the regime. In the muted footage aired by state television, Armita Geravand is shown boarding the No. 134 train car, appearing calm and unaware of the events about to unfold. However, within seconds, her unconscious body is carried out, sparking immediate speculation about what transpired. Emergency medical personnel rushed her to Fajr Hospital, but questions about the handling of her case continue to mount. Why was the footage from inside the train not released? Why were certain moments in the surveillance footage missing? And why was she taken to a hospital on an Air Force base rather than a public facility? International reactions to Geravand's injury have been swift and critical. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock condemned the incident, saying, "Once again a young woman in Iran is fighting for her life. Just because she showed her hair on the subway. It's unbearable." Similarly, U.S. Deputy Special Envoy for Iran Abram Paley expressed his shock and concern over the reports. The Iranian government's handling of the situation reflects its broader struggle to suppress dissent while facing persistent defiance of the mandatory hijab laws. As outrage grows over Armita Geravand's mysterious injury, activists and international observers continue to demand answers. The case parallels to Mahsa Amini's tragic death are undeniable, fueling speculation that this incident could reignite widespread protests. Despite a heavy-handed crackdown on dissent, many Iranian women openly defy the hijab law, risking harassment and arrest. Adding to the controversy, Tehran's city government recently hired approximately 400 hijab guards to patrol public spaces, including the metro. These guards have been tasked with issuing verbal warnings and preventing women without headscarves from boarding trains. Critics argue that such measures deepen societal divisions and escalate tensions between citizens in the state. The lack of transparency surrounding Geravand's case has only amplified suspicions. While Iranian state media attempted to present a controlled narrative, their refusal to release critical footage from inside the train raises questions. Activists argue that the government's selective disclosure suggests a cover-up, as has been alleged in similar cases in the past. The muted surveillance footage, which shows her entering the train and then being carried out unconscious just seconds later, leaves a glaring gap in understanding what truly happened. Armita Geravand's injury has already drawn condemnation from human rights organizations and foreign governments. The Oslo-based group Iran Human Rights stated that withholding footage from inside the train only increases doubts about the official narrative. Meanwhile, activists have urged the United Nations to intervene and investigate, citing Iran's history of pressuring families into silence and broadcasting coerced conflict state TV. At the same time, Geravand's family faces immense pressure. Her parents appeared in state media interviews suggesting that their daughter's injuries were accidental, likely caused by a fall or a blood pressure drop. However, activists believe such statements are often made under duress, as the regime seeks to control public perception. Geravand's injury, occurring in the highly symbolic setting of the Tehran Metro, underscores the ongoing struggle over women's rights and personal freedoms in Iran. For many, the incident serves as a grim reminder of the pervasive violence faced by women who challenge the status quo, even in the most mundane acts of daily life. As of now, Geravand remains in a coma at Fajr Hospital. The lack of clarity about her condition and the circumstances of her injury continues to fuel anger both within Iran and abroad. Activists fear that without accountability and transparency, such incidents will persist, further eroding trust in the Iranian government. The aftermath of Armita Geravand's injury has intensified scrutiny of Iran's government, particularly its enforcement of hijab laws and treatment of dissenters. The incident has drawn global condemnation, with many seeing it as a stark example of the risks women face under the regime's restrictive policies. Despite heightened crackdowns, the courage of Iranian women who continue to defy these laws is becoming a symbol of resistance. As Geravand lies in a coma, questions about her treatment at Fajr Hospital remain unanswered. Activists argue that transporting her to a military-affiliated hospital rather than a public facility may have been a deliberate move to limit independent access and information. Reports also suggest that security forces have closely monitored the hospital and restricted visits from journalists and concerned parties. Meanwhile, the Iranian government's attempts to control the narrative have drawn sharp criticism. The arrest of a Shard newspaper journalist who visited the hospital highlights the regime's efforts to stifle reporting on the case. This mirrors the tactics employed during Mahsa Amini's death, where state media played a significant role in disseminating the official version of events while silencing dissenting voices. The government's focus on tightening hijab enforcement further underscores the regime's anxiety over public defiance. Despite the deployment of morality police and hijab guards, women in Tehran and other cities continue to challenge the law by appearing in public without headscarves. This defiance has emboldened activists who see it as a direct rejection of the theocratic state's authority. Internationally, Geravand's case has sparked outrage and calls for accountability. Activists abroad demand that the United Nations fact-finding mission on Iran conduct an independent investigation. They emphasize the need for transparency, citing the regime's long history of coercion and repression. The lack of crucial footage from inside the train remains a key point of contention, with many viewing its absence as evidence of a cover-up. Despite the government's attempts to downplay the incident, the parallels to Mahsa Amini's case have not gone unnoticed. The similarities in the injuries, the pressure on families, and the suppression of information have drawn comparisons that are difficult for authorities to dismiss. The global attention on Geravand's injury threatens to revive the anger and unrest that followed Amini's death, signaling a possible resurgence of protests. As the world watches, Geravand's condition remains critical. Her case is more than an isolated incident, it has become a rallying point for those fighting for women's rights and freedoms in Iran. Whether the government will address these demands or continue its repression remains uncertain,